So we're going to head in. How you doing? Good. Fine. Yeah.
I got you.
At the Walmart. I don't really hear that. Really? Get something to eat while we are finished. Or beside the water fountain to the right side. However, this is an exhibit facility. One says color, one says white. Use whichever one you feel comfortable using. Okay? Don't take offense.
You know, speaking of that,
Sorry.
I just heard on the news, they did a little thing about, you know, people who are afraid of germs, et cetera, and they talk about, you know, which bathroom to use if you are really concerned. And most people tend to use the closest one from the door, which is on the right, which happens to be the colored bathroom. So if you're really concerned, and this is just interesting, whenever you use a public restroom, if you're really concerned about germs and you know, using public restrooms, the one furthest from the door is the one that you want to use because that one is the least used, the least traffic there. But I thought it was very interesting. I looked and I said, okay, colored white. I wonder which one I'm supposed to take. Is this a test or something like that? But I said, oh, gotta go. Colored one is the first one, so I'm going in there. So I didn't even worry about it. And you're going to find probably, I bet, that most people are using the colored one.
Oh, that was new. I try to go through this. Because I'm going to go through this.
Because there are only 9. Yeah, here we go. Same church.
We're going to give out one, but you guys can share depending on if you're all going to the same church or whatever. But
Yep. Oh, you got one? I got two.
I had one
Got
that
one?
got a few. Got a few. I'll just not take
it's not going to be a good picture. I got it.
You ready to roll? Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We're getting started now. I'm Tyshawna James Hart. I am a surgical oncologist or cancer surgeon at St. Francis Hospital. I also do general surgery as well, and I'm very involved in cancer screening and breast cancer screening, most specifically, but not excluded, not excluding anything else. I'll just give you a quick synopsis of my history. My family is actually, if I go just back as far as my mom, she wasn't born here, but she was raised in Huntington, West Virginia. She spent a little time at Kentucky State, and then to West Virginia State. Then she got married, moved away to Pittsburgh, which is where we were born. She never finished college, but when we were about 10 years old, she decided she was going to go back to school. So she started back at the University of Pittsburgh, went through, she was only going to get her teaching degree. So she got that, then she got her master's, and then she got her PhD. I don't know if any of you, some of you may know her, Dr. Betty James. And then after she did all that, she remembered when she was a child in Huntington, when nobody was allowed to go to Marshall University. So just to put an exclamation point at the end of the sentence, she went back down to Marshall and got a master's degree in sociology. When we came here, she had just gotten a PhD in education, so she came to work at West Virginia, at that time, State College. And we went to Dunbar High, spent our last 2 years at Dunbar High, spent a couple years at Marshall, where I'm sure you don't remember me, but I remember you because I was in the Black Mass Choir a couple years ago. And from that era. You and this lovely young woman with an absolutely angelic voice. All I remember is that her name is Ollie.
Ollie Watson.
Okay, that's all I remember, but I remember that very well. But as I said, it was just a couple of years ago. And of course, Teresa, we were in the same dorm, and I feel like that was just a couple of years ago. You haven't changed a bit. So I was at Marshall, and when I graduated, I spent a couple of years working as a lab technician, and I had always thought I was going to be a doctor, go into medicine. Then I got this wild hair and thought, I don't want to spend that much time on my education. So I think I'll just, instead of going to medical school, I'll get a PhD in biomedical science. Well, actually that didn't make sense because that took longer than that took longer than medical school. And while I was working with some projects as a lab tech, I somehow went back to my senses and realized that I really belonged in medicine, dealing with people, and not just sitting at a bench looking under a microscope. So I went to Marshall University, graduated from Marshall University in 1989, and ran off to New York, Harlem Hospital, and did my surgical residency there. After that, I did my fellowship in surgical oncology, cancer surgery, at Roswell Park Cancer Institute in Buffalo, New York. Traveled around a little bit in Virginia, went back to New York, and so finally, 15 years later, which is about 2 years ago, I got back to West Virginia. Now I'm at St. Francis Hospital. As I said, my biggest interest is in breast cancer screening, although my overall interest in cancer screening is very strong. And as far as work is concerned, I do all general surgery. Okay? This is, I've become involved since I came back with the Susan G. Komen. I'm on the board of the Susan G. Komen Cancer Foundation, and I've also become very involved with the American Cancer Society. One of the things that I have noticed, coming from a very metropolitan area like New York, and then coming here, is that the thrust for preventive medicine and cancer screening really, really is lacking. I'm not seeing a lot of education, a lot of public education about cancer screening. And I am very sad to say I am not seeing primary care physicians talking about it, offering it, asking their patients, have you had your PSA done? Have you had your colonoscopy? When's the last time you had your mammogram? I've seen physicians just, you know, at least they'll do it, but not with any commitment, just write the mammogram prescription, not do any kind of public education about how important it is to get that mammogram, why you're getting it, you know. And so I've become very interested in actually getting out and talking to people and saying, you know, this is really important, and I'll tell you why it's important. You know, that's the most important thing. Instead of just having a list of things that you should be doing along with the other 100,000 things that are on your list of things to do, you know, I think it's very important for us to talk about. It's not only important for your health, but why is it important? And how can you achieve these goals? That's a very important thing. How can you achieve these goals? And so that's what Body and Soul is about. And I'm going to go through this book with you a little bit later on. It tells you the origins of Body and Soul and why, you know, why we're doing it, why we're even talking about it, and how successful it is. Okay? And most importantly, Body and Soul is a celebration of healthy living. And these next few slides are going to bring you to why we're even talking about it. Okay? Now these statistics are a few years old. And I challenge anyone to disagree that these statistics have improved. Because I don't think there's anybody who hasn't seen on the news that there is an epidemic of obesity in Americans, and even more specifically in American children. So these statistics are about 5 to 6 years old, probably even older than that, because by the time you get things published, it's already old. So these are probably maybe even 10 years old, and we know that as much as all of the health craze is going on, and millions of gyms all over the United States and spas, et cetera, but still we are having this problem with weight control, adults and children. 850 billion calories are consumed, which is 200 billion more than is needed. 47 million hot dogs, 4 million pounds of bacon, 60 million pounds of red meat, 170 million pounds of eggs. And I eat all of those foods and love all of those foods. You'll find some people that say, oh, I don't have hot dogs, or I don't eat any pork at all. But the vast majority of the United States is consuming these foods. Okay? Ice cream, candy, beer and ale. How many people how many of you have ever heard somebody say, I don't drink alcohol, I just drink beer? Okay? People don't realize. And you think, well, I'm not going to eat, I won't have very much to eat. I'll just have this little glass of wine. A lot of calories in that little glass of wine. Okay? All right? 1.5 million gallons of hard liquor, enough to make 26 million people drunk. And that's a lot. And that's not, that 1.5 million gallons of hard liquor is not being consumed on Skid Row. Okay? Any Friday or Saturday night, I don't know the name of the store, but right there in Patrick Street Plaza, it's busy. It's busy. Well-dressed, apparently affluent, educated people. Okay, so it's not about, I don't have to worry about it because that's where the drunks are on Skid Row. These are things that are very, very important that we have to consider, that all of these things we're consuming as law-abiding, Christian, educated, sensible people. Okay? None of that excludes us from the downfall of calorie consumption. It's so easy just to pack it in, and you're not even thinking about it. All right? Now, what are this is in 1990. And, interestingly enough, 15 years later, it hasn't really changed. The actual causes of death, just death, we're not talking about cancer yet, just death in the United States are tobacco and diet and activity. And look how diet and activity and the tobacco run neck and neck. And the thing I want you to notice is, these are two things that you really have control over. Toxic agents, firearms, microbial agents, motor vehicles, sexual behavior that would have to do with AIDS. A lot of times you don't have control over that because other people and other factors are involved. Okay? But when you look at the two main things that you have total control over, which is your diet and your activity, and your choice to use or not to use tobacco, or to be in the room with someone who is using tobacco. Totally up to you. Totally up to you. Okay. And then when you think about the causes of cancer, again, tobacco and adult diet and obesity. And we'll talk a little bit about, how that is related to, how diet and obesity is related to some cancers. Occupational factors, family history of cancer, perinatal factors, growth. I'm just going down here very quickly because I want you to see again, tobacco, adult diet, and obesity. We have those are the biggest problems, but we have the most control over those two things. Next slide. Next slide again. Okay. 25% of the population smokes. I don't know what that statistic is now. 100% of the population eats. I don't know what the statistic is on smoking. And I would have to say, just from some of what I've read and some of what I've seen, that even though adults have gotten the message and are working very hard every day to stop smoking, young adults, they're targeting now. They are targeting these cigarette ads to young adults. And so I think the impact on all of the warnings and all of the public education is being lost, because even though we as adults are getting the message, we've got to find a way to protect our children so that they get the message as well and don't ever starve. 100% of the population eats. Very, very difficult to control what you eat. It's one thing to cut down on your drinking or to stop your drinking or to stop smoking. But, you know, and the thing is, when you decide you're not going to do it, you have to stay away from it. And you have to get away from people that are doing it. Well, that doesn't work when you're eating because you have to eat something. You have to eat something. So, you know, what do you do about that? We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Next slide. Now, this is something that's very important because we as African Americans have a habit, and this is my philosophy now. This is not Dr. Tyshawna James Hart talking about any research. This is Tyshawna talking about what I have observed. We as African Americans have a habit of excluding ourselves from information and from opportunities and from education, from public education, in that somehow we'll mentally say, that's for them. When it's all the same information, it's all the same information. There's nothing that comes through on TV that says, okay, if you're African American, don't bother to listen to this. But somehow when PSAs and prostate screening is talked about, when mammograms are talked about, when making sure you're eating healthy foods and fruits and vegetables are talked about, somehow we seem to either consciously or subconsciously exclude ourselves from that, and we end up not participating. And the reason I'm going to say that is that I have a personal, first-hand experience of this very issue. When I first came to St. Francis Hospital, I got together a $20,000 grant for free mammograms and breast screening. Had it in the newspaper. Reverend Watts was talking about it on his radio station. And I was handing out flyers. I mailed flyers to about 20 churches in the Kanawha County. There were twice as many white women that came as black women. Now, that's not to say that this grant was for blacks. It wasn't for blacks. It had nothing to do with race. What it had to do with was your income and whether or not you're insured, whether or not you're covered. So I don't care who you are. I don't care what you look like. But if you are not covered, if you are not insured, if you cannot afford to get a breast screening exam and a mammogram, then come on in. Now, you don't have to answer this question, but I propose a question to you that you can just answer mentally. Do you believe that most of the people that are underinsured and uninsured in West Virginia are Caucasian? It would appear from whomever came in, it would appear so. But it's the same newspaper that goes all over the place. Reverend Watts broadcasts all over Kanawha County. But these are the people that came. So and this just underscores what I believe is that we have a habit of, for one reason or another, excluding ourselves from the information and from the opportunities, thinking it's for other people. Yeah, I heard it, but that's for the other people. And I want to say here and now, it's for all of us. And we need to grab onto it just like everybody else. Because there's no electronic force field that detects your heritage, and when you try to grab onto it, you get this awful shock. It's there for you. You have to go out there and grab it. You have to ask for it. Next slide. Okay. Now, if you just look at the difference here, average frequency of fruit and vegetable consumption per day by race, you will see that when it comes to, and it is said that we need 5 or more servings. When it comes to 5 or more servings, we are lagging behind as African Americans. Okay? Next slide. Now this, to me, is the most powerful, and this gives you a visual image of what is happening in the United States. And when you see it, just think in your mind, That last slide, when you see that last slide, I want you to think in your mind, it's even worse than that. Okay? Overweight adults in the United States from 1988 to 2000. Next slide. This is where more than a third of the people in the state are overweight. Okay? More than 35%. That's more than a third. Next, in 1988, you see where it is. Just a few. 1990. Come on. I want you to keep your eye on the red. Okay, next slide. See what's happening? Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay? In the year 2000, every state in America, over 1/3 of the people are overweight. Okay? That was 2000. And there's no way you can escape what we've seen on the news about our children struggling with weight in the first and second and third grade, struggling with weight. And it's not about cosmetics. It's not about worrying about whether or not they're going to be teased by children. We're talking about a health issue, a health risk. Okay, next slide. So, that brings us to body and soul. You know, why is this just some idea that somebody thought of so we could just all get together and have a good time and pretend like we're doing something good? It's very, very important. Effective programs based on scientific studies shared with community churches to bring research findings into everyday lives. See, research findings are not just for the scientists. They're not just for the people that did the research. So now we'll just sit around and talk about what we researched and what we found, and it's all ours. Now, if we did that, there'd be some very angry people. Let me say this, though. Whenever you do hear research, you always want to approach it carefully and take it with a grain of salt. And if it doesn't make sense, you wait before you act on it. Because as we all know, there'll be a big report about something. Remember what you've been doing for the last 20 years? It's all wrong and you're going to die in 2 days, so stop it. And then about 3 weeks later, well, you remember what we said about that thing that you were doing wrong? Well, it's not quite so bad as we thought. You just need to do it in moderation. And this is something that Benjamin Franklin has been noted for saying over the centuries, everything in moderation. So I want to say that, that you don't want to just go crazy every time you see a research a study published that, you just change your whole life. But the most important thing is we need to know what's going on with the research. And it's so different than it was 20, 30, 50 years ago. Scientists can't sneeze now without us knowing what they're researching and what their results are. So when that information is put out there, let's pay attention to it. Let's pay attention to it and take what we can and use it. And if it doesn't sound right or if it doesn't make sense, then look into it and see what's going on. And I tell you something, the best thing in the world is the internet. And I am a very slow person to the internet. I was computer illiterate until a couple of years ago. And then I started using the email. That's what got me into it. I started using the email. Good. Because you can answer people back when you have the time. You don't have time to talk on the telephone, but you have time at some point, any time of the day, to find out who's been trying to get in touch with you. Then you can answer all of them back. Saves a lot of time and brings a lot of information into you. Then when I started the internet, once I started the email, then I got onto the internet. And it's just fantastic. Any little question you want, you just Google it. And that information just starts flooding you and flooding you. So there's no reason in the world why we can't have a wealth of knowledge at our fingertips. And you don't have to have a computer because you can go to the library. If you're willing to be patient and wait for the next person to get off of the computer, or if you go at a special time, it's right there. And you know what? There's somebody there that can show you how to do it. Okay? So, bring research findings into everyday lives because these research projects are affecting us and we need to know about it. And the interesting thing is, the scientists want to share it. So think about it now. As I said, if they didn't want to share it, well, we found out something really, really good. We're just going to keep it to ourselves. Or how about that? Researchers have found something that's going to save your lives. News at 6. Well, we can't know at 10 o'clock in the morning. We have to wait till 6 o'clock to find out what's going to save our lives. You know? But that gives you an idea of how important it is. Because they know that's important, so they want to bring you back to 6 o'clock. And we don't like that, right? Well, why can't I know now? Well, guess what? The researchers will say, we want you to know. We want you to know now. Here's the information that we have found. Okay? So we don't want to turn away from it. By any means, we don't want to turn away from it. Okay? Now, Body and Soul, in collaboration with the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Emory, the NCI's National Cancer Institute, American Cancer Society, all of these entities came together, next slide, to make up Body and Soul. Next. Now, Body and Soul target African American adults through the church in a 4 to 6 month intervention program. Okay, next one. What it is a combination of 2 tested effective interventions, and I'll show you about that a little later on. One in North Carolina and one in Atlanta that show through their success that policy and environmental changes in policy and changes in your environment, we're talking on a local personal level, not on a government level, a local personal level where you have the power to make some changes. And individual behavior change, and they go hand in hand. Those things have made the difference. Next slide. Okay. Next one. Now, what we need for Body and Soul is it has to include multiple church-wide activities. Next thing. Policy changes within the church. Very important. Pastor's commitment, because the pastor is the leader of the church. So it's very important that you involve him or her. It's not something where, you know, well, they're off doing that little thing, we'll just keep them busy and I'll just stand over here doing my pastoring. The pastor needs to be intimately involved in this. Motivational interviews, where there's a particular person that comes to you within the church, talks with you one-on-one, talks with you about what the problems are, what the things are that you want out of the program, and this gets everybody involved on a personal level. And then there's training for the motivational interview volunteer advisors. That would be one person who would do a one-on-one with the individuals in the church that are involved in the program. So you see, it does take a level of commitment. But I will say, and these are, you know, you're not really going to hear anything new today. You're not going to hear anything that you haven't been told by your parents or your doctor or your pastor, and you're not going to hear anything that you haven't told your friends, yourself, your children. It's not new. None of this is new. This is not going to be any earth-breaking, earth-shattering news where you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay? It's just an organization of this important information and a way to implement changes in your lives and others' lives, and sort of they feed off of each other. When you see people that are successful and they see you and you're successful and you feed off of each other's successes, you also feed off of each other's apprehensions and difficulties, because you know, you love cupcakes too? Oh, yeah, me too. You know, let's not eat them together. Okay, instead of by yourself, everybody's out there, I know everybody's out there eating pizza and cake, and I'm sitting here like a fool eating this carrot. You know? No, let's not do it together. There's nothing like misery loves company. Let's be miserable together. Why are you miserable over there and I'm miserable over there? Let's come together and be miserable together, and that'll be so much fun, right? It's so much better. You need a church. This is very, very important. You need a church committee to plan it. Now, I submit to you from personal experience that a committee does not have to be 5 to 10 people. You can start off with a committee of one. And that one person, who will of course chair the committee,
Do all the work.
it might seem like that, but not at first. First, one person, then you just keep getting somebody involved, and you keep talking, and you keep talking. And finally, somebody is going to want to come with you and do it. It takes a matter of patience and persistence, always remembering you catch more bees with honey, okay? Now, you're also going to need tracking data and reports, but we won't talk too much about that because that is very intimidating. And as soon as we find out we have to start writing stuff down and keeping track of stuff, nobody wants to have anything to do with it, okay? But that comes later. That can come much later. The most important thing is getting things started, okay? Oh, not so fast, go back. And what I'll tell you is the two most important things to me of this list: the pastor's commitment and a church committee to plan it, okay? And like anything, and I truly, truly believe this, nobody wants to cut up the apples and make the crust and put all the seasonings in and watch the pie while it's in the oven. But when they start smelling that aroma, people start coming around and they want a piece of the pie. So what you have to have is at least a committee of, start with one, and that one person enlist at least one other person, and you just keep working. And when that pie starts baking and people start smelling that aroma, they'll be like, what's going on in there? And they will come. They will come. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and all of this is based on the philosophy that family and faith and community come together to make up body and soul. Okay, next slide. African American churches participated in focus groups. Next slide. And I'm going to show you what in these focus groups they found out. Next slide. Okay? They found out that yes, people do believe that fruits and vegetables are helpful. Okay? And that they decrease the rate of cancer. All right? So cancer is associated with deterioration, pain, suffering, and death. Not all cancers, okay? All cancers are different, but everybody sees that word cancer, the big C, immediate death. It doesn't have to be that way. But there's a lot of fear, and therefore people don't want to talk about it. They know that you can't always prevent cancer, but there are precautions that you can take: healthy eating, exercising, and medical care. And this is like saying, look both ways before you cross the street. Wash your hands for a full 60 seconds. Nobody really counts. You put a bunch of soap on your hands, you look at it, make sure everything's up, then you rinse it and you go. Because you just don't have time for that, okay? And, sometimes, well, they don't say look both ways. They say look, and look back. So they say look, bam. And sometimes you see the car coming, but you think you can beat it. Exactly. So, I'm saying that, this is just rhetoric. Right now it's just rhetoric, but it doesn't have to stay rhetoric. It doesn't have to remain that way. Healthy eating, exercising, and medical care. Those things are very important. And they can become a very important part of your life. Okay? Spiritual health, prayer, and being close to God can help avoid illness. Okay? There was something on the news the other day, and I cannot tell you exactly what it said, but the gist of it was that whether or not prayer actually helps. And some study was done that said, well, prayer doesn't have a thing to do with anything. It doesn't help at all. Well, I don't know if I believe that. I know I don't believe it. Okay?
Looked at the wrong channel. Because I also saw that last week that said that
those people that say that they participate in religious activity at least once a week live so many years longer.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw that too.
But again,
I saw that too.
yeah, again, I
The
do
way
know
they
that song.
said there was a lot of question about the way they conducted the survey and how they did it.
And see, that's so important. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because, perfect example, they come out with these studies, and you say, and so what they're saying now is all these hundreds of years you've been praying, and you think God was helping you. Doesn't work. We just did a study, and we showed it doesn't work. Okay? But as you said, how did you do the study? How did you present it? Does it make sense? And so you say, okay, well, I can't tell you I'm going to stop praying, but I will look into it. Okay? And that's what this is all about. Finding out information and taking everything with a grain of salt. Does it make sense? Look into it even more. Okay? Now, the Bible was cited as a source of health and nutrition information, and your pastor is the one that's going to help you with that. They're most effective in delivering these messages to the congregation. All right? And then there's a wealth of expertise among your church members. When I was very, very young, I used to think that the only job of the church nurse was to help people when they started to fall out when they were getting happy. And that was the job of the church nurse. But I didn't know. There they were, dressed in white, so lovely. And they always looked cool. No matter how hot it was in church, they just looked like there must be this internal air conditioner, nice and white, and you know, a little white thing, and just standing there waiting for somebody to get happy, and they would go over and help them. That's the role of the church nurse. Okay? And the reason I'm telling you that is that a lot of what we feel and what we perceive are the roles of church members are very limiting. Okay? And there are people that come into your church every Sunday that are powerhouses of information and ability. And whether it is because they are afraid to say no, or whether it is because they really want to help, you really don't care. Once you ask them, they will become involved. You don't care if they're saying yes because they're scared to say no, or they don't have the guts to say no. Fine, just get on in and help, all right? There are some people that are just waiting for somebody to ask them, just waiting for somebody to ask them. They don't want to be too forward, they don't want to seem like they're know-it-alls or whatever, and so they won't say anything. But if someone would just ask. And then there are other people who have lots and lots of talent, and they feel that they don't have the time, they don't have the space in their lives, and they just want to come in church for that hour and a half and get out and hope and pray that nobody asks them to do anything. Well, you know what? Just like the teacher would always call on the person in the back of the room, that's the person that you want to ask. And they're not going to say no. But you don't care why they didn't say no. They said yes. And so you involve them, and they will be very happy and very enthused that they're involved with it, because they're going to see good results, and they're going to see that people need help. They just need a little help to get over that hump. They know where they want to go, they just don't know exactly how to get there. Or they don't want to go alone. So when they see other people are there willing to help and willing to go along for the journey, they're right there. Next slide. Okay. Next slide. This is a crazy slide. Okay. What you don't want to do, and this is, again, what I have found out through personal experience, you don't want to keep focusing on cancer. Because once you say that word, people just sort of shut down, and they don't want to deal with it. When I talk to my patients about doing self-breast exam, first thing I say is, you're not looking for cancer. I'm not telling you to do your self-breast exam every month to go find cancer. Nobody's going to go looking for cancer. You know, that's crazy. Who wants to go looking for trouble, looking for illness? You know, that turns you off completely. So the idea is, which is where we came up with, not we as in me, but as health professionals came up with the whole breast health instead of breast cancer, because it really is not about breast cancer. It is about breast health, okay? And it's not about eat your carrot so you don't get cancer. Eat the tomato so you don't get cancer. No. Eat the tomato because it's very important for you. Overall, on so many aspects of your health, one of which is cancer. So you don't want to, when you're presenting this, you don't want to talk too much about cancer because it's just too, it's too negative. All right? Stress positive messages about eating fruits and vegetables for health benefits. Don't exclude meats and traditionally favored dishes. And focus on modifying dishes to meet 5-a-day guidelines. Okay? What I'll say is that a lot of times what we don't realize is that food is a way that we show our love. So when you tell people, you start telling people, no more bread, no more dinner rolls. You know, this woman has been making dinner rolls for the church for 30 years. That is her signature dish. Everybody knows her for those dinner rolls. Now you're saying, don't make the dinner rolls. They're killing everyone. You can't do that. You can't do that. One of the most important things, you and your husband or your wife have a fight, whoever does the cooking in the household, which, I'm finding more and more, it is not necessarily, very often, it is not the wife who does the cooking in the household. So whoever does the cooking in the household, absolutely. So whoever does the cooking in the household, you have a fight, you have a little tiff or something, or somebody gets sick. So you make that honey glazed ham, or you make that macaroni and cheese. That is the way you're showing love. And now everybody's saying, don't do that. You're killing your loved one. So what? Now you have to find a whole new way of showing your love. Well, in some respects, yes. You do have to find a little bit of a different way of showing your love. Okay? But it doesn't have to be cut out completely. It doesn't have to be cut out completely. All right? And again, go back just one more time. Back. Okay. Focus on modifying dishes to meet 5-a-day guidelines. Modifying dishes, don't cut it out. Modify it. And then what I would say is that, have what you really, really love. You just don't have to have it every day. You don't have to have it 2 or 3 times a day. Those things that you love, if you are a mashed potatoes person, you don't have to have mashed potatoes every day. And who made it a rule that you have to have dessert after dinner? Why is that a rule? And who made it a rule that you have to have bread with you? I mean, I love bread now, and I can make a meal out of bread. But who made that a rule that you have to have bread with dinner? So you have bread, but not at every dinner. Not every single day. Okay? Now, I'm the kind of person where, don't tell me not to have my mashed potatoes without butter and sour cream. What is the point? I really feel that. What's the point of that? And I'm not going to eat it if I can't have butter and sour cream. Modify. Because do you know that I can't believe it's not butter. It's very tasty. And low-fat sour cream is very tasty. Okay? So that's a modification. And then again, you don't have to have that potato with every dinner. All right? Okay, next slide. Now, when you're shaping the program, you want to realize that it says might be, but I'm convinced that this is an absolute, that people will be more responsive to nutrition messages that are integrated with spiritual and Bible references, okay? Because that's the first and last word. And the pastor should deliver these messages, because you know good and well, if somebody is telling you what you don't want to hear, it's got to come from the top. It's got to come from the top, because, well, who does he think he is? I guess he thinks he's the pastor. I don't see the pastor doing it. But the pastor says so, then maybe but I'm not listening to her. I saw her eat the bag of potatoes. Okay? So, when you're doing these programs, you have to really, you already understand, but you have to pay attention to and you have to accept who the church members are, how you're going to present it to any particular church member, because people have their issues. And as I said, come from the top. So that's why the pastor has to be intimately involved in this, because this is something that, and also, it also shows the church that this is important. It's not some little project that's keeping this little group of busybody church members that are always trying to start something busy. This is important, and the pastor is committed and wants to be involved. Okay? Use and enhance the church's existing resources rather than outside experts, which means that the outside people will help train, will help with any information and any questions, but it's the church members that have to bring it's the people in the church that have to bring the other members to this body and soul. So that, for instance, I'm not the one that needs to go into the church and say, you need to have your broccoli and your cauliflower and your wheat bread. I'm not the one. It has to be a member of the church that is disseminating this information and getting everybody involved. Okay? Next slide. New American Cancer Society program. This is what Body and Soul is now. Designed to reduce the cancer burden in African Americans by partnering with local churches to reduce cancer risk by eating more vegetables and fruits. Okay? It is shown that African Americans are diagnosed later, have a higher death rate, and an increased risk of cancer as opposed to Latinos and Caucasians. Okay? And I submit to you, it is not because of the melanin in our skin. It has to do with lifestyle and life choices that have to do with our culture and our way of thinking and our way of perceiving information that is handed to us. One of those perceptions is, that's not really for me, that's for them. When yes, it is our information too. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Now, when you're doing this program and you're doing some tracking and you're monitoring how the program is going, you don't want to just start it and figure that as long as people are showing up that everything is okay. You want to be asking yourself, as a person that's, you know, managing this program, did they like the program? Okay. Were they able to do it? Was it fun? You know, it's got to be something that is attainable. It's got to be something that people want to do and they want to come back to, for the next meeting. Did it strengthen the relationship between the church communities and the local American Cancer Society, which is very important. You know, the American Cancer Society has so much going on and people just don't know about it. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And they're just begging.
This morning.
They're just begging, you know, because they can't just go out. They have to go where there is a need. So they can't go knocking on people's doors and imposing themselves. There has to be a request. I mean, the American Cancer Society is putting out a lot of information, but there has to be some request that says, we need you, come on in. There have to be some questions asked to the American Cancer Society. And so one of the most wonderful things that can happen is for the church, the community churches, to develop a good relationship with the American Cancer Society, because they offer so much. And there's not a church community, there's not a church in the community that doesn't have people with cancer, suffering from cancer. And some you never know about. You don't know what their needs are, because they don't want to complain. They don't want to burden other people. But they need help. Okay? So you don't have to give it to them. They may not want to take it from you. But just that little card that gives a number to the American Cancer Society. Or just to say, did you know that they offer transportation for you to get back to your radiation therapy? Did you know that? You know, people don't know it. But one of the most important sources of information in the community is the church. All right? And even if the person doesn't go to church, a church member has a neighbor that never set foot in their church. but they know that neighbor has a need. So if they know, now their neighbor knows, okay? So if this program can strengthen the relationship between the church and communities and the local American Cancer Society, it's a wonderful thing, okay? Did it lead to other American cancer program services in the church, like prostate screening, breast cancer screening, cholesterol testing, all those sort of things that impact on your general health, that impact on your risk for cancer, okay? Did it increase volunteerism for the American Cancer Society? Because if you have, think of all the churches in our county, if you had one person from each church, just one person from each church that said, you know, I think this is a wonderful thing. I wonder if there's something I can do with the American Cancer Society. Because I need that in my life. I need to volunteer. Or my mother had cancer, or my sister had cancer, or my father died of cancer, and I want to have something that I can give back. That's a lot of volunteers, okay? Okay? And the other thing is, what is the sustainability of the program? Because this is something that's so important. So you don't want to be healthy for 3 weeks or for 6 months. And then, okay, well, that was good. Now, let's do something else. This is something that's got to be ongoing. And at some point, you want to be saying, you know, just like the Body and Soul is saying, for 10 years we've been doing this. You want your church to be saying, you know, we started this thing back in 2006. And here it is 10, 15 years later. And these are the improvements we've made in the program. Well, this is how we used to do it, but now we do it this way. This is something that you want to be ongoing, because this healthy lifestyle is something that you want to adopt, and now it is you. It's not something that you're just doing, it is you. And it's what the church members are doing over the years. Next slide. Okay? Now, what they found with these churches was, churches are enthusiastic about it. It does strengthen church and American Cancer Society relationships. It leads to other programs, including tobacco, breast, prostate, colon, as well as other patient services. There are new volunteers, and there are policy changes in the church and members' commitment, and therefore it is an ongoing program. So these churches that started this thing about 10 years ago, they're still doing it. Okay? Next slide. Okay? So how do we get started? Arrange a meeting with the appropriate church leaders, the church health and welfare committee, the church parish nurse, the pastor, and the board. And then you share Body and Soul's message and essential elements. Every church, no matter what the denomination, no matter what the ethnic background, every church has a PAC leader, where when things get started and other things are said, or the pastor says something, look on there. When something happens, what are they looking like now? What's the so-and-so? That is the person you want to get involved early on. Make it very, very attractive to them. The important people in the church. And when I say that, I don't mean that everybody is not important. But I mean, come on, we know. There's hierarchy in every group. And when I say hierarchy, it's not necessarily what is developed in terms of, you know, what you write down on paper, but just somehow through social interactions, somebody ends up being the leader of the pack. So, two people you don't want to leave out, and two people you want to ask first. First person you want to ask is the pastor. Because once you have the pastor's blessing, then you go to the leader of the pack and you say, well, Pastor and I were talking, and we thought that you would be a perfect person to help us. Immediate status in the group, in the church, immediate involvement, and then you've got the ball rolling. Okay? And then you share the message and essential elements. I think that's the last one. Is that the last one? Now, before we have questions, Because what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to read the whole book to you. But I do want, you know, what happens is, if you're anything like me, and I bet you are, you have this nice book, ooh, that looks interesting. I'll just go over that when I have a little bit more time. And then you're like, honey, where's that body and soul book? It was yellow and purple and had some colors on it. Where is that? I don't know. Okay?
I know you will.
So that's why I am going to go through it with you. Just a few things, just so you know what good things it has in it. So you know that this really is a jewel. And if you have this book, there's a lot of other information, but I'm telling you, if you have this book and you go by this book, it will guide you through. It has everything you need in it. It's a fantastic book. So, you know, I'm going to go through that with you. But in the meantime, I'm going to get this drink in.
You know, you touched a little bit on children obesity. I think it was Thursday. It was either Wednesday or Thursday. I came home from work, and Hart, the talk show host, Maury, he had these little kids on there. They were under 5, and this one little boy was 4. He weighed 79 pounds. And they showed where they had put food out, and the mom was trying to keep him from eating the donut. She ended up taking the donut and putting it on top of a cabinet, and he was trying to figure out how to get up there to get it. I mean, he threw a temper tantrum. He fell down on the floor, and they had to help him up. 4 years old, 79 pounds.
Let me tell you something. A lot of people don't like to hear this, but that is the parent. That's on the parents.
That's what I said.
They don't. The children at that age don't have the power. They don't have the emotional and intellectual power to make those choices. And when I hear a mother say, well, I try to get him not to eat it, but that's just what he wants. I just want to get my hands around her neck.
But take it away from him.
Don't have it in the house. I can't resist this Krispy Kreme glazed donuts.
Oh, yeah.
Not the custard filled, not the jelly. Krispy Kreme glazed donuts are my weakness. They cannot be in the house because I am not going to resist them. I'll walk around them and keep looking at them. You know, like a dog after a bird. Just keep looking. Long as it's there, I'm going to keep looking. And eventually, when I think I can get it, bam, I'm on it. I'm an adult. Why are you going to put that poor child through that kind of stress? It doesn't make sense.
No.
It doesn't make sense. That is on the parent. And when I see these little children in elementary school that are struggling to even walk, you know, it's just criminal. But when I say that, that's a very judgmental statement. And I have to backtrack because that's another way that we show our love to our children, is to give them food. And it gets out of control. And how do we backtrack? The first thing that has to happen is we as parents have to be responsible and disciplined. And it's very difficult to be disciplined when you're spoiling your child. And that's another way where we have to change the way we show our love. And you know, the thing about it is, there are a lot of mores that are the same, a lot of ideas that are the same, but our lifestyles have changed. And so our mores and ideas have to change with our lifestyle. You know, 100 years ago, we were working in the field, getting up at the crack of dawn. You had to have a big breakfast because you weren't coming back until about 6 or 7 when it started to get dark. And they would bring something out to you on the field in the middle of the day. So you had to have a good hearty breakfast that carried you for hours while you were working and sweating and building your muscles and breaking your back. You sat down for a couple of minutes to have a little something to drink and eat. You didn't have time for a big lunch because you have to get back to work. So when you got home 6, 7 hours later, which is like 12 hours before, from the time you first got out there, sit down to that big dinner. But in a few hours, you're going to back up again before the sunlight hits, working the field, okay? And so those kind of meal schedules made sense, and they worked for you. But nobody's working the field now, we're working the computer. We're working the computer, we're sitting down, we go to work, we sit down all day. You know, we come home and we sit down and watch TV. You used to come home and get the wood from the shed and pump the water. Coming home from work meant you had to get the house together now, okay? Which was more work. And as time changed, you weren't working in the field, but I tell you what, you were walking 2 or 3 miles to get to work. Working in the plant, okay, or wherever you were working, walking back home. Everybody's driving now. Everybody's driving, okay? So lifestyles have changed, but our ideas haven't changed. There used to be, you know, children used to play outside. Mama, can I go outside? Can I go outside? We weren't allowed to go outside before 11 o'clock on the weekend. And we used to think, wait, can I go? Can I go? Can I go? Do you know now that I have to force my son to go outside? I went outside to work in the yard. It was a beautiful day. I said, come on, guys, let's get outside. I turned around and they were gone, back in the house. I said, get back out here. This is a beautiful day. Get outside and play. It's a whole different thing now. Now they're supposed to get on the computer and do Disney Channel. James wants to play his Xbox. It's a different lifestyle now, and we've got to make some changes. Number one, we've got to make some changes in the lifestyle and get back out there. Only now it's not mandatory. Now it can be fun, okay? But we've got to get back out there, and we've got to get our children back out there. And we have to stop keeping.
Yeah, what do you want?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Well, see, once I start talking.
I know it, that's why I know.
I distracted her.
Do you have water or tea? Thank you.
Dr. James,
Yeah.
I do have a question though. What percentage of the food that we buy from the stores is actually real as compared to what's artificial?
Okay, now I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that in terms of percentages. I mean, I just start throwing out
Higher,
numbers,
low?
but it wouldn't be real. It wouldn't be, you know, I would be faking it. Okay? What I can tell you though, in that respect, is that you're going to find that the more convenient the food is, thank you very much. The more convenient the food is, the more preservatives there are in it. Okay? And the more salt and the more sugar. The bottom line is fat, salt, and sugar make food taste good. Tastes good. Makes it go down easy, nice and sweet, nice and salty. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to season your food. It's necessary. The question is, do you need so much all the time? And you have to be very careful with the foods that you buy, because you'll find the foods that are low in fat have a lot of sugar in them. Okay? And you have to realize that if you have too much sugar on board, your body's only going to break down so much sugar. And then what does it do? It goes into survival mode, and it stores the sugar as fat to use for later. The only problem is, we're not doing any work, so it never gets used. So you keep building it up and building it up. You see what I'm saying? If we're exercising, walking, swimming, riding bikes, and I'm not saying it's like I'm doing all of this, because I'm in with that group too. But if we were doing that, then we'd be using up that sugar that the body saved for later. Well, I just put that aside because I know she's going to be getting up a little bit later on. She's going to burn that up. No. I'm going to be sleeping later. And that sugar is going to be turning into fat. Okay? But the body just never gets that message. And your body has faith in you. And it says, I know she's going to get up there and start doing that work. So keep storing and storing and storing. But we just won't do any work. We won't do any exercise. Okay? So you have to be very careful with that. The other problem is that the foods that are fresh and good for you are more expensive. They're so expensive. It is just absolutely impossible. I mean, a head of lettuce sometimes can be, a head of just plain old iceberg lettuce can be up to $2 sometimes, depending on what the weather is and what's going on out west or down south. So it's very, very difficult. What I would say in terms of, and we hadn't talked about organic foods. They make you pay through the nose for organic foods. It's like if you don't want to eat pesticides, then you have to pay for it.
Right. Well, I asked that question because I stay in Morgantown, and I found out that like stores like Dairy Mart, you can go up in there and there won't be nothing fresh, no apples, nothing. It'll all be artificial stuff, the whole entire store.
That's right, that's right. But it's convenience.
Right.
You're going to find that the more convenient the food is, the less nutritious it is, and the more preservatives they have in it. Unless you're talking about fruit, which is probably one of the most convenient foods of all.
Yeah. So with fruit, they really have no excuse with that, right?
Exactly.
The convenience store can be able to have fruit.
But it's spoiled, see, we're not buying it, that's why they don't have it. People are not buying it, so it may be less expensive easy for them to keep and so forth. But if you think about it, we put some bananas out here last night, and I said, oh, we can't cover that with that cellophane because before tomorrow it's gone.
Right, right.
So you're not buying the bananas.
And that's where Body and Soul comes in.
Re-educating.
To get us to start buying that stuff. And when we start buying it and wanting it and asking for it, because it's unreasonable to ask a store owner to stock something for a small handful of people because it's just not lucrative. But if enough people start doing it and buying it and asking for it, then it can change. But all these things are very slow to happen.
Another piggyback question off of that is farming, African American farming here in this area. With farming, you have fresh food. Is that something that we've moved away from, the whole concept of having a garden and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, it's in this book that one of the things that we can start is to get our church involved in doing a garden. But yes, it is something that we've moved away from because we believe that we're too busy for that. And so whereas before it was a necessity where we needed to have a garden for food, we can still have a garden, but it can be our hobby. Why can't gardening be our hobby? Well, I don't want to do those tomatoes. Lord, I get so many tomatoes I want to do. Give them away. Give them away. And gardening is a form of exercise.
Right.
Gardening is hard work.
First you got to fight to keep up thinking you stuff. Tell them where you live. That's the hard work. Pull up your little river trail. Because where I am, they will pay.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, God. But you know what? Good. I hope they're eating it.
I do.
But it's a lot cheaper to have those fresh
To have,
fruit.
yeah,
They grow
absolutely.
on
And if we can impress that upon the church members, yes, it's very expensive in the stores. But you know what? That's because it came from Florida. Or, it came from Missouri, and they've got to pay for their shipping. But guess what? You take some seeds and till up some dirt, put it in your backyard, it costs nothing to go outside and get it.
That's right.
Okay? But let me go through this really quickly because it's getting on close to 12 o'clock. First thing I want to do is take you to page 25. And this is the history of Body and Soul. Like I said, I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to pull out a couple of sentences here and there to give you a flavor of what this whole thing's about. In the little rectangle here, churches that participated in the pilot program that started this whole thing. You can see there Delaware, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, okay? And what Body and Soul is the combination of two different programs. One program that was called Black Churches United for Better Health, and the other program that was called Eat for Life, okay? And these churches, they weren't all Baptist churches, or they weren't all AME Zion churches. They were all churches of different denominations and different sizes, okay? And what they did was they promoted eating fruits and vegetables, okay? And now it says here, Black Churches United for Better Health, a collaborative effort among 50 African American churches the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Community Health, Duke Comprehensive Cancer Center, okay, North Carolina State University. A lot of people did a lot of work. And now here it is, they're handing it to us on a platter. A lot of people did a lot of work to come together and to figure these things out. Then Eat for Life was a collaboration of African American churches in Atlanta, Georgia, and Emory University. It was funded by the grant from the National Cancer Institute, okay? So, Body and Soul, in collaboration with American Cancer Society, University of North Carolina, University of Michigan, and the National Cancer Institute, came together to make this program. And the program combined the most successful components of each of these two separate projects, all right? And these are the ones that were the most successful. So that's how it came about. A lot of work was done beforehand. So, and you know what, I used to say this all the time when I was in residency, as a chief resident. You know, trying to keep the interns and the junior residents in hand. And I would say to them, somebody has already done the work. They did the research, they took care of the patients, they wrote about it. All you have to do is read the book and follow it. Don't rediscover the wheel. This work has already been done, so you don't have to figure it out yourself. Just read the book, take the advice, and follow it. And it's the same with this. All of this work was done, it was funded, it was researched, and they gleaned all the good stuff out, threw away the stuff they didn't need, and now they're saying, this is what works. And so all we have to do is just go right to it. Now, page 13. I want you to start on page 13. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Just start with page 3. Okay, and then listen, I just want to go right through, because I want you to sort of have a visual of the interesting things that are in here. So basically, when somebody says, what is Body and Soul? Body and Soul is a wellness program developed for African American churches. And the idea is to promote, in this program, you're not trying to tell people to go get their breast cancer screening, you're not trying to tell people about prostate cancer. In this program, all you want to do is concentrate on, are you getting your 5 to 9 servings of vegetables a day? Don't throw in, don't eat so much red meat, and do low-fat foods. Don't confuse the issue. Don't overload with too much information. Just concentrate on 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. This program combines pastoral leadership, I can't emphasize that enough, educational activities, a church environment that supports healthy eating, and peer counseling. Why even do Body and Soul? Because it has been found that African Americans are at high risk for many serious and fatal diseases, and not just cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, okay? And African Americans are more likely to suffer serious health problems and die from these diseases because of our lifestyles and the way we eat, okay? The benefits of Body and Soul being in your church: you learn to embrace and celebrate good health, okay? It's not about getting in the bikini, okay? It's not about that. It's about being healthy. Learn how health and spirituality are connected. Your body is your temple. I didn't say it, okay? It was said a long time ago, all right? Feel empowered to take charge of your health. That's what you want everyone to feel. Empowered, making choices. And every single day you wake up, all day long, I say it over and over again, all day long, you have the opportunity to make the right choice. If you didn't make the right choice this morning, and you had that blueberry muffin that was so delicious, make the right choice in the afternoon. If you ran by McDonald's and you just had that hamburger because you were hungry, 3 o'clock, you didn't have breakfast, you didn't have lunch, and you cannot wait for dinner, so you went ahead and had that hamburger, make the right choice at dinner time. All day long you have a chance to make the right choice. And this is what you want to present to the church members. This is what it's about. Just sort of like a reawakening, saying, hey, we can do it. We can do it. And you know, we should do it. And guess what? You may not know, but you want to do it. Okay? Exactly. Gain access to vital health information at the church. Live healthier in other ways, such as eating less fat and getting more physical activity. Okay? Eat more fruits and vegetables every single day. And it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to run out of here and have your 5 to 9 servings. And when it starts in the church, everybody's not going to be having 5 to 9 servings every day. But it's going to be a slow, gradual process where at least now we're thinking, I should be having it. Whereas before, nobody was even thinking about it. Because that's good for the other people. Okay? Over on page 4, very important, 4 pillars of this program. And the reason they call it pillars is because just like the church that needs support on all sides with pillars, you have to have number 1, a pastor committed and involved. You need the pastor's support. You've got to have the pastor's support, okay? Church activities that promote healthy eating. Gatherings and workshops that teach information about and skills to encourage a healthy diet. And you need a body and soul planning team to plan these activities. Okay? You can have a vegetable cook-off. Who can make the best healthy recipe with vegetables? Okay? And have a contest and have an award. These are just little ideas about that. You know, let's try an activity where all the vegetables are green. What different green vegetables can you bring this time? You know, just little things that just make it interesting. You can still have your same foods, but throw in those vegetables. And you know what? Don't have just regular carrots and broccoli and cauliflower with dip. Not that they're not great. I love them. But everybody sees them all the time and they just pass them by. Nobody picks them up. They're very good. Or what you can do is have those things and have a dip contest. And have judges, the whole thing. Who has the best vegetable dip? And that'll get people eating the vegetables to test the dip. Okay? Now these are just, you know, you get a team together, you plan these activities, and it just starts rolling. Okay? And personally, I think that this is the best time of year to start it because everybody's willing to come out. It's summertime. People are thinking about their weight. Something happens when the temperature goes up and people get concerned about their weight. Okay? And people are willing to come out. So this is the perfect time, early spring and into the summer, where people are going to be excited and willing to start programs and come out for these activities. Okay? Number 3, make sure that when you have these church functions that there are healthy choices. And as I said, not just the hard vegetables and the dip. You can have steamed vegetables. You can have, there's certain cheeses that are good. Mozzarella cheese, Parmesan cheese are good. Cheeses are good for these vegetables. Have healthy choices so that, and then have healthy choices and let people see you making those choices. Because even though they might go home and eat 3 cupcakes, right then, right there, at that activity, they chose the green peppers. They chose the lettuce with tomatoes. And it has to start somewhere. Okay? Whatever the motivation, it's got to start somewhere. Number 4, make sure you have one-on-one support. Now that doesn't have to be one person in the church counseling everybody, but it's just like anything. You can have, once you get the groups together, you can have, what we used to do in residency is you would be assigned a mentor so that you're helping each other. You're helping each other with it. And you call and how are you doing with it? I can't think of any good vegetables to eat. I'm sick of vegetables. What about you? Yeah, I'm sick of vegetables too. Well, let's go out together and have a salad, okay? And let's just throw care to the wind and have a high-fat dressing on our salad. You see what I'm saying? Because it's incorporating those vegetables, so it's putting your mind in a whole different realm, all right? Those are the 4 pillars. Pastor, commitment, church activities that promote healthy eating, an environment that promotes healthy eating, which means there's a choice that they can make, and peer counseling, one-on-one motivation and help. Okay? Now I'm going to skip over to, lots of good stuff in here, but I'm going to skip over to page 13. Okay? Customizing body and soul for your church. Tips for a successful planning team. Okay? Schedule regular meetings early on. That way everybody can put them on their calendar. Prepare an agenda for the meeting. Set up a system for regular communication with the team between meetings. okay? And I'm going to go ahead and skip down to the very bottom one. Be patient. Church-based programs take time, but they're worth it. Be patient. As I said, you're in there, you're cutting those apples, peeling them, making that dough, and nobody's there, okay? So just go ahead, make that pie. Make it by yourself, okay? Somebody might happen along and say, is there anything I can do? Yeah, come on in. Then when that aroma starts filling the house and spilling out of the windows and the doors and people walking by, what is that? It's a good pie. We do it every week. Come on in and help you get a bigger piece of pie. And you'll be surprised, people will start coming in. Maybe just a trickle at first, but everybody loves to be involved. Nobody wants to be left out. So just go ahead, be patient, but get it started, and it's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to skip over to page 36. Okay? And this is a guide to help you as well. Like I said, this book has everything. This is not the only thing, but it has everything in it to get you started. Recommended daily servings of fruits and vegetables for healthy, active people. You see for children, 2 to 6, over the age of 6, teenage boys. And how much is a serving? Shows you there how much a serving is. What do you mean? And, you know, we probably have what we think is one serving. You know, when I'm dipping out mashed potatoes, there's no 1, 2, 3, boom. That's it. There's my serving. It's automatic. Okay? But do we do that with vegetables? No. No, we don't. You know, just changing over. And then show you how much a serving is. And you'd be surprised. You could probably have all of your fruits and vegetables for the day between breakfast and lunch, or breakfast and dinner. It's not like you have to be eating fruit and vegetables all day long. Okay? There's another. Oh, okay. And this is probably one of the most important things. And I'll be finished after this. Page 41. Okay, I don't want to eat these things, but what do I have instead? And that's a very daunting task to try to accomplish when you're shopping. Okay? Ham hocks and fatback. Okay? Smoked turkey thighs. Okay? That you can use that as a substitute. Pork, bacon, turkey, lean ham, Canadian bacon, lard, butter, or other hard fats. You can use a small amount of vegetable oil. Olive oil is also good to use, although olive oil is high in fat. Olive oil is high in fat, but low in the polyunsaturated fats, low in the bad stuff. So you can use a little bit of that. And always remember now that you can have fat in moderation, and fat can be burned off with exercise. So the idea is not to throw everything out of your house and start over again. It's to incorporate what you have in your house with new, healthier things. That's what it's about. Not changing your whole life. Your whole life has been a sham. You know, you should be ashamed of yourself. You shouldn't even walk into that kitchen. No. Incorporate the new, healthy things into what you already have. Okay? High fat cut of pork, tenderloin, sirloin, roast or chop, center cut loin chop. You can buy the cheaper cuts of meat. What you have to do with the cheaper cuts of meat is you have to season them ahead of time. The very expensive cuts of meat, you can just pull those things out of the refrigerator and just cook them, and they just melt in your mouth. Okay, very expensive cuts. But you can buy the cheaper cuts of meat. You bring them home, you season them, you marinate them. If it's beef, you do the old pounding thing, break up those muscle fibers, throw it in the freezer, and when you're ready, you bring it out. Works very nice for you. But again, what is the difference between this and the other way? Work, inconvenience, planning. And it's only work and inconvenience and it's planning because you're not used to it.
May I add a comment? That the beef, for example, the meat, you add some vinegar in it.
Oh,
you will
that's right.
it and business wise.
Absolutely
And
right.
she can get some money too.
And see, that's perfect. And this is the kind of stuff that you want to go on in the church planning meetings. And you share these things with the services, and then they're going to be in church talking about, well, how come I didn't know about that meeting? Next thing you know, they're going to be coming to the meeting too. But that's perfect. That's wonderful. Okay? And that really is all I have. Just that, yes, ma'am.
Finish your thought.
No. Just that it can be very exciting. And I think if you read this and see how simple it is, the most difficult part is going to be getting together a few people and to sit down and take the time to plan it. But you can make a long sheet of plans. It's not going to go according to plan. It never does. But you know where you want to be. Things change. You might change where you want to be later on, but you have something to work with. And given time, things are going to work themselves out. You work the kinks out, and the most important thing is you're going to be bringing the church together. There's going to be a dialogue, and people are going to be thinking fruit and vegetables.
Okay, the body and soul is oriented to the African Americans. Now, I'm in a situation where I want to reach out to Caucasian
I'm
youth.
so glad you said that. Go ahead.
Now, how will I integrate this with still reaching out so they won't be intimidated?
Absolutely, absolutely. It is my opinion that even though this is reaching out to African Americans specifically, at least in West Virginia, in terms of lifestyle,
There you go.
there is very little difference
Right.
between African Americans and Caucasians,
Mhm.
okay? And this is targeted to African Americans, but not away from Caucasians or Latinos, because it's all the same issue. And I would say to you that when you present this, you say the same thing. This was targeted toward African Americans, but much like many things that were targeted towards African Americans starting from the Civil Rights Movement, everyone has benefited from it. Because what is good for African Americans is good for everybody. We're not saying only African Americans need to be healthy. What we're saying is that, as I said before, for some reason, we feel that these things, these healthy lifestyles and these issues do not pertain to us. So that a group of people got together and said, look, I'm paying attention to you, and I want you to know this is for you. But that doesn't mean that it's not for everybody else. So even though it is targeted toward African American churches, we realize that we all have the same issues. And just because there's a label on it doesn't mean that anybody can't have a benefit to it. So I say, go ahead, present it and say, look what I found, guys. It was targeted toward African Americans, but we don't have to stop there. That's a start. But it's not limited to African Americans. And just tell them the truth. It was targeted toward African Americans. But I know that it goes much further than that. It goes much beyond that. And I say, let's all do it because we can all benefit from it. Because there's not a West Virginian that doesn't know what a ham hock is.
Yes.
Black or white.
There you go.
Okay?
I also say that, you can or can, you can say that it's targeted, but I don't think that you have to. But some of the things, the materials or support things that go along with it that have pictures of African American pictures, they also have, like the bookmarks and brochures and so forth that have,
So you do have some white
yes,
faces.
yes. And so you need
I
to,
want to know what you're doing.
yes, that's, want to make sure.
But, I'm sorry, just one thing. It's very interesting. And that is an issue, and it's an issue in reverse. Because when we see things that only have white faces on it, we go,
As
and
far as
so
health
we
is
don't want,
concerned.
and we don't want that. We don't want to exclude anybody. We want everybody to benefit from it. And that's a very important issue. So if people can see a likeness of themselves, a mirror image, they'll want to get involved.
I was wanted to ask you, what can we do to make African Americans look toward vegetarianism and here in this state? And is it from your personal experience, is it something that they're interested in, or is it just something that we have to gradually move forward to? Vegetarianism.
Well, you're asking the wrong person.
Well, that tells you the majority of people aren't, you know.
You are asking the wrong person. I'll tell you why you're asking the wrong person. Because I believe that we as human beings are omnivorous. We eat vegetables and fruits and meat, number one. Number two, not only do we do that, I believe we need that. We need that iron, we need that protein, and we need that fat that meat offers. But again, everything in moderation. Now, if I see someone who's a vegetarian, I don't feel like, oh my God, you're just going to die, let me go buy you a big steak. I don't feel that way. But what you'll notice is that if you are a vegetarian, you have to be very, very careful and very mindful of what you're eating and making sure that you're getting all of the proteins and the fats that you need. We need fat to absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K. You got to have it. Children need that fat. They need that fat from milk for their brain cells to grow. They need that protein from meat for their muscles to grow. That doesn't mean they need a big, huge hamburger. Right. Doesn't mean they need a big bowl of French fried potatoes. But we need all of that in moderation. So personally, I'm not a person that would advocate promoting being a vegetarian because I believe that it is unnatural for human beings to eat strictly vegetables because we need a well-rounded diet of all of that. But having said that from a personal standpoint, I think in general that the vast majority of Americans are not leaning toward vegetarianism. And I believe that when I say African Americans think that's for the other people, I think most Americans think that's for the other people. It takes a tremendous amount of commitment, and it should take a tremendous amount of education to make sure you're getting the nutrients that you have. And it's just a lot easier to make sure that you have, you know, your meats, your vegetables, and your fruits in moderation. So I hope that answers your question. I'm not like totally against vegetarians, and I think that it's just an awful thing. But I believe that we need all of those things in moderation and in the proper balance. And I'm not giving up my part.
Well, only reason I asked you this is because I had been on the vegetarian diet for about 6 months myself, and I recognize the difference from eliminating the oil and the grease and stuff. And I don't know, I thought that, you know, that was a worthy comment.
Well, let me tell you something. You are going to feel a difference because automatically, when you take certain things out of your diet, when you're taking meat out of your diet, you're taking a lot of fats out of your diet, and you do feel better, you do slim down. But the question is, do all fats have to go out of your diet? And I would say no, absolutely not. You're not going to find any fats in vegetables, and you're not going to find very much protein in a lot of vegetables, and no proteins in fruits. And so you need those things. So whereas initially you feel better, you feel cleansed, the question is, and again now, you're an adult, so your brain has grown, your muscles have grown, and when I think about children, you know, they need all of these, you know, all of these nutrients. The question is, how well nourished are you, and how much work is it for you, research-wise, to make sure that you're getting everything that you need? Whereas it, I think it's sort of built into the system when you're eating the proper servings of the meats and the grains and your starches. I think it's sort of like built into the system that you're going to get a good balance.
I have my best friend is vegan, and her problem is that it's a difficult thing if she's away from home trying to find the proper food, because now if she eats any meat, it makes her very sick. And we were, a good example, we were in the South. And we went to, I told her, I said, don't eat anything down here unless you know. Definitely, we went in a restaurant. She asked, you know, are these greens, these greens had any meat? No, no ma'am, there's no meat in the cabbage, no meat in the cabbage. She ate it and was deathly sick that night because her body rejected that flavor of the meat. They may have brought it out without any meat.
Yeah, there's no meat in it now. The meat back there.
I told her, I said, you're in the South, anybody in the South is going to cook with some fat back somewhere along the way. And that's the only thing, you have to be so careful. If your body becomes accustomed to not eating meat, it's going to be a real challenge.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it's a tremendous commitment. So I would say to anyone that any quest for good health and staying away from a lot of high fats is very important. But I would also say that anybody who would get involved in that, it's a tremendous commitment. It's not something just to take, well, I'm just not going to have any meat. And so you're eating potato salad and corn and you know, beans or whatever. As long as you're not eating meat, you're a vegetarian. It's going to take some research, and it's going to take some commitment, and again, planning.
I have to ask this question. You talk. This is body and soul. How do you define soul? What is it composed of?
Well, I would say soul is probably anybody's personal. I'll give you my personal definition of soul. To me, soul is the way you feel, the way you perceive things, and the way you project that to someone. So that body is the literal sense, your body, and the philosophical sense, the body of the church. Now, and this is my interpretation, so, you know, Dr. James Hart said it. This is my personal interpretation. And again, that's sort of like, you know, that's a philosophical question. To me, body and soul means your body, the structure of the outer structure, literal structure of your being, the body of the church, the structure of the church, and soul, what goes on inside, how you feel, how your mind works, processing your thoughts and feelings and your experiences, how the church works, processing the relationships and the happenings that go on in the church, bringing them together and making for a completely healthy entity. Both your mind and your body, both your soul and your body. One of the things is when you are on a quest for good health and maintaining the temple that God gave you, you know for sure you're doing something right. Doesn't mean it's easy, but you know that you're doing something right. And there's something very comforting and very peace-giving about knowing that you're on a mission that will do nothing but bring good. And that's what body and soul is about. You're bringing good to yourself and to the church. It can't be wrong. So you feel very good about that. And that brings the church together because, you know, you're on a quest to make everybody, to make yourself and everybody healthy. It's not a matter of a competition. Well, I'm healthier than you. I weigh less than you. My size is smaller than yours. You know, I didn't eat any pork today, so I'm better than you. It's not about that. It's not about that. It's about being healthy, being on a quest to make your children healthy, and doing it together. Now, that's my interpretation of body. The body, your personal body, and the structure of the body of the church, and the soul, your personal soul, and the soul of the church. Now, you probably get a whole bunch of different answers from everybody else, and that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. But it's all toward a common goal, which is betterment of the body and soul. So if we can do it together, that's wonderful.
That's a good interpretation.
Well, thank you.
I just had a comment. Well, first of all, I want to thank Pam for inviting us. John and I came to Morgantown.
Oh, okay, great,
We're
great.
excited, right? We're going to have to take it back and I want to thank you tremendously.
Oh.
It feels good to hear that information coming from somebody, no offense, that looks like me.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
understand where I'm coming from. And
Absolutely.
It really uplifts the spirit, the soul in me. And thank you. And by the way, I'm very proud to look at the sister that is a surgeon, oncologist.
Oh, yeah.
We don't see that often up there. Thank you. Really, I want to say that. With that said,
Good, good.
One of those is the issue that I believe that in African American we cannot talk about all this without talking about the mental health, the spiritual health, because I really believe that we are very unhealthy, actually. Especially, I don't know about here down south, but up in the northern part, west Virginia, we are. You know, the black community is ailing, and sometimes we don't even know that we are. Therefore, how can you adopt, you know, all those other things when mentally you are not well? Our children are not well, they're being attacked in the schools and everything. How do we respond to that? And I honestly, truly believe, I'm so thankful to God I came to this, because this is a non-threatening way to talk about this issue. You know, we can start there, and then we can go ahead and talk about other things, because then hopefully, this will bring us together. Because I'll be honest, it's a challenge for me as a black woman in my black community to pull ourselves together. I don't know if anybody here shares that. So this looks like the tool that we have, and I really pray that we will pull on each other here. When we have some,
And that's what you have
we'll
to
go
do.
on new and
Networking, and it starts very small, very small. As I said, every single day, all day long, we have an opportunity. Don't look at it as a burden or a job. It's an opportunity to make the right choice. And when we start small and we start young with our children, and you start having that internal control, then that confidence and that self-satisfaction emanates from you, and that impacts on your environment. But it starts from within. It's not about controlling other people. It's about that self-discipline and self-control. And it starts just as simply as what we choose to put in our mouths. Yes, ma'am.
I just think it goes back to it takes one spark to start a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand what you're saying, because it is hard to get us all together and all organized, but I take it as a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Something that, you know, I have even started with my family and in my church, and even just, you know, speaking to people that I know that are having health issues. And, you know, it really breaks my heart to see my friends coming down with diabetes and all the health issues that they're, but it's all about us making that commitment to be disciplined. First of all, to get the knowledge, to educate ourselves. You know, it starts with a very personal commitment, you know, and it was personal for me because I was on the way. And, you know, I had to make a choice. You know, I know I have two grandmothers that are insulin-dependent diabetics. My mom has had open heart surgery. I have lots of health issues in my family, and I knew that if I did not take charge, because I was one person that had to make the decision to take charge. Like you said, it's no new information. It's eating healthy. Because it's all around us. It's exercising, but it's making the commitment to do it for yourself. It started with me. And then once I got to that point, you know, when I saw my friends getting into trouble and frustration, it was my desire to share. If I can do this, you can do this.
That's right.
You know, what can I do to help? You know, do you need someone to walk with you? I mean, so it starts with really within yourself, having that spark. But like you said, once you have that spark, it can start a whole fire. It's just the momentum. It's just talking to, you know, one or two people at a time and getting them to buy in to what you have to offer.
And just imagine if somebody said, if you saw this information somewhere, I think don't you worry about that. It's a little too hard. Very difficult. Can't do that. Don't you worry about that. That's fruits and vegetables and living healthy. You know, don't you worry about that right now. You'd be like, because it's hard, I can't do it. Well, we say that to ourselves. That's going to be hard. Something that's a little easier. We do that to ourselves, and we need to say it's going to be hard, but I can and will do.
In my church, I feel like I think most of the people in my church know that it's healthy for them to eat fruits and vegetables. I just think it's a matter of breaking those old habits, or I've always done this, or set in their ways, or like you said, buying cheaper cuts of meat, even though this is fruits and vegetables, and don't want to get away from that good taste that the fatback have. But if we can just teach them how to, I think people in my church will eat anything as long as it looks good and taste good. So they can just find ways.
Yeah, I don't want to keep you too long, but I just remember this. I saw this Bill Cosby show years ago, and he was trying to show his daughter Vanessa how presentation is everything. And so I can't remember exactly, but I remember him getting some cake and some other food and putting it on a garbage can and messing it all up and here, have something to eat. And they're like, he's like, there's good food. What's the problem? But it's on a garbage can. And he's like, you see, presentation is everything. It's not enough that it is something that's good for you or something that you would probably want to eat. You have to present it in such a way that people will want it. So you don't want, it's not a judgmental thing where, you present to people, you really need to stop eating that stuff. Here's some fruits and vegetables. Gee, you don't want to present it like that. It's like, guess what? We have fruits and vegetables now as well as the other. And make people feel good about eating the fruits and vegetables. Not bad about eating what they've eaten, but good about bringing something in new. And if it's presented in a nice and pleasing way, and we are just big children, one of the things that I read about for my children to get them to eat more food is to involve them in the preparation, in whatever aspect. You're having church events, let them choose which vegetables they want to have at that church event. As long as people are involved and the presentation is good, then, it's going to take. If you have the patience and if you're not afraid that it's hard. Sure it's hard, but I don't know anything that is worthwhile that isn't either hard to get and or maintain. It might be easy to get, but it's real hard to maintain. So the level of difficulty, it doesn't scare us off. We can do it.
I wanted to ask you, is there a directory identifying African American healthcare professionals in the state of West Virginia? Or is it someone working on it?
One thing I know about, and I'm just now finding out about it, I know there's a Black Medical Society, but I don't have a lot of information on it. And I don't know who the Black medical professionals are across the state. I'm just learning some of the Black medical professionals in Kanawha County.
All right. But
So there's not a good, it's not a good networking, in place. And I have to say, again, I'm going to be personal now, but I've been here for almost 2 years, and I was told about the Black Medical Society, and I really tried very hard to get in touch with the people in the Black Medical Society. And after 2 years, I'm just now receiving correspondence, and that's after my effort. And in my opinion, they should have been seeking me out. They should have said, oh, she's here. Because when I first came, I was in the paper, my face was on the billboard, so there's nobody that didn't know I was here. And somebody mentioned the Black Medical Society, and so I made efforts to try to get in touch with no response. And I'm just now, when I say just now, I mean in the last month, getting correspondence. So I have to say, I don't know. I think something better could be done.
You do believe it's necessary to have
yes,
networking, and you don't see one at this moment. You don't see one.
No, I don't.
What I will say is that there is not one, because I'm somewhat associated with them, and they're trying to get started again.
Okay.
Supposed to be, you got the message about the meeting,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So we'll see how it goes from there. But, as things progress.
Something else to work on, as well as our fruits and vegetables.
That's right. But I will say this, and I want you to get up because the young lady from the American Cancer Society is here to talk with you about a little bit about what the reporting and so forth that we have to do. And sometimes you may see that it seems to be a lot of paperwork, but the one thing is, just like Dr. James said, that we don't see anything happening. So some little things may be happening, but what do you have to say? What do we have to show for them? So part of what we need to do to show that we're out here, we're active, we're trying to do something, is to do the little bit of paperwork that we have there for that. So she's going to talk with us a little bit about that. And then after that, what we here at the coalition or at All Aid are going to do is to definitely work with you to jumpstart you and to move this on. I talked with Ms. Foster about the guide for the, I'm trying to remember, implementation guide, and then another guide for the volunteer coordinator, that type of thing. I said, bring it all, because what happens is we meet today, and then we're going to say, okay, well, we need to get together for another meeting. Well, normally that doesn't happen. You know, and that sounds great as what their protocol here is. And I said, well, that's why you need to know the community that you're working with. Because a lot of things are written for us. And, you know, and it doesn't really work well with us. Okay? So I said, bring that now so that we can have that now, so then we can know what all is expected of us. How will we go from there? Because, again, like I said, to get together and meet for another 2 hours to talk about how we can move it, it's going to, number one, put us that far behind. And typically what happens is we lose the momentum and we're not going to get it done. And I'm ready to move it on. I want to see some action basically within the next 2 months. And I'll be calling you, more specifically, Melanie will be calling you to bug you. You know how she does. And at least
very nice voice, though. Very, very
to say, you know,
the presentation is good.
Yeah. So it's very good. Don't leave, because
I'm just going to go over there.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Ms. Foster from the American Cancer Society to talk to us about this.
And actually, we're not going to do a whole lot of talking about the reports. We've given you so much information in the Body and Soul Program Guide, the Church Guide, and the Implementation Guide. I want you to be able to digest kind of what you've already heard. It's going to be really based on what types of activities and different things that you all plan to do. And there's not a whole lot of requirements that you're going to have to proceed with. It's all in the book there. And again, once you go back and get your committees together, the first thing I encourage you to do is have fun, okay? This isn't going to be like, you know, Pamela said or Dr. Hart said, oh, goodness, how are we going to do these veggies? And, you know, we got to take this stuff out. And, you know, we're not asking you to do a total change tomorrow, but this is for the wellness for us 30 years down the road. And we want children to be healthy. We don't want children to face the issues that we're facing now. You know how much we paid Dr. Hart to come in and do this presentation?
Nothing.
None of it. That's exactly right.
What?
Us being the American Cancer Society. Dr. Hart didn't even know what we were. It's a pleasure to be here, though, representing the American Cancer Society. I'm the Mission Delivery Manager for Kanawha, Putnam, and Jackson County. So if you are in these areas, you'll be seeing my face a whole lot. We have a lot of different things that are occurring with the American Cancer Society, as Dr. Hart mentioned. We do have a lot of programs and services, and I don't want to, again, overwhelm you. But I want to give you an incentive. How many of you like these Body and Soul magnets? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask you at some point after we finish this to go over to my little display table here and pick up some information. When you bring me some information, say, this is what I take it, I'm going to give you a magnet, okay? Because, like she mentioned, we have a lot of programs and people don't even know that we have these services. We've got Cooking Smart that you can take back, Living Smart. We've got programs, like she mentioned, Road to Recovery. Someone needs assistance to and from treatments. How many of you get your hair cut? Go to licensed cosmetologist. Okay? We have a Look Good, Feel Better program for women who are going through treatment. As Dr. Hart knows, and a lot of you, women lose their hair, lose their eyebrows, don't feel as good as they could. So this is the way that we bring them in, give back to the community. They come in, have a licensed cosmetologist, do a makeover on them. We give them through the Cosmetologist Association and different cosmetic groups. They donate a whole packet of makeup. It's really nice, Estee Lauder, different name brands. They come in and they get a makeover that night. They also get help with wigs and like scarves, different ways to utilize those. So it's a great program for women who are going through treatment. Reach to Recovery for newly diagnosed breast cancer patient. We have a network of breast cancer survivors, and some of you are here. I'd like to talk to you about that too. But they actually go and make a peer-to-peer visit with this lady who's facing breast cancer. Not to give advice, but to talk through fears, concerns, what's going to happen to me. How many of you know that the American Cancer Society gives free prosthesis and bras to breast cancer patients? Okay, we give free wigs, turbans, There's a whole realm of resources. But we've got a lot of brochures here. This is the most important. This has our 800 number, of course, on the back with our website. It's free, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Okay, and I know I'm speeding through this like the speed of light, but I know you guys have been sitting here a while, and you know I don't want to keep you any longer than I should. But this is really important stuff because we want people to come to us for help. It's there, you know. 1947, the American Cancer Society began its campaign, you know, to the community, bringing programs and services forth. This is what, 2006. Some of you didn't raise your hand that you knew some of the resources, but I know what? When you go back to your churches now, you'll be informed. You'll have information, you'll have brochures. You can say, I mentioned Eve Wanger Foster. She was at a meeting with me Saturday. Here's some information. Okay? Eat smart, healthy fruits and vegetables. This will be good for you guys to take back to your committees, give out to the church. If there's not the abundance of information you need here, put your name on this paper and either write down the title for me, and we'll be happy to send you some information. So we were trying to make everything as convenient and as easy as we can to get these programs and services out there. But the main thing is to what? Have fun, right? Have fun, you know? This will also be a benefit to you too. We have a body and soul video. It's a little lengthy. It's about 24 minutes. We're going to try to incorporate this, but it's just a little bit too long to do that. But it's a really good video that compares two families that are going to church one morning, how eating breakfast or not eating breakfast or going through McDonald's kind of made or broke their day. So it's a good video. It's only like a couple bucks, and I think Pamela and I are going to work on some of the dollars and things to maybe assist you guys and get some of the other resources. Other incentives are the magnets, stadium cups. There are also T-shirts if you have some, you know, budgets in your church. We're not sellers, you know, we're not promoting that stuff, but there's incentives. People look forward to getting a cup or getting a T-shirt. So it's just another way that
Do the cups and T-shirts take body and soul?
they do. Yeah, and I can get Pamela a couple, and I know you guys will be meeting back at some point, you know, further. And these should be probably a little more further down in your program. Get some people involved, get them excited, get them going. Some things that I spoke with one of the ladies that did the pilot program in Georgia, because I was really excited about coming and talking to you all. But she said, you know, make sure if you can get your hospital involved, get a dietitian to come speak to your group, because you may have people who ask questions like, well, my doctor told me not to eat that many fruits because I'm a diabetic. Well, he didn't say not to eat all those fruits, but maybe just depending on the amount and what really increases the sugar levels and all that. Other ideas for your groups, and there's a lot in the book. Master gardeners, have them come in, talk to you about doing gardens and different things. Have someone that's in the industry of cooking come in, and you know how we've all seen the strawberries and carrots and palm trees and watermelon boats. Have somebody come in, do that, make it fun. You know, Pamela and Dr. Hart has mentioned different ways of cooking foods. It's all good, and we just want to promote the healthier side because we all eat. You know, we all eat. You know, it's just depending on the choices that we make. So, I think that's pretty much everything that I've got. If you are interested in any other volunteer opportunities, we're statewide. There's office in Morgantown, Charleston here, Huntington. So there are resources within your community. And if you look, I mean, we are here in your community finding a cure today.
I have a quick question. I work with youth, the youth group of law. Is it okay with the Cancer Society to use those T-shirts and on one side put our logo on it?
Yes, I don't think there would be any issue with that.
You know, you can add.
They're your shirts whenever you receive them. There's also a really neat event called Relay for Life that the youth really like to get involved with. We fight against cancer. Yeah, and a lot of church civic groups get involved with it. Kids really love it. I mean, you get to stay out all night, have fun, camp out. You know, it's just a great resource. But we're all in the, you know, fighting against cancer. But if you have any questions, please feel free just to catch me afterwards, and I'll be happy to do so. If you want your magnets, don't forget. And please, the little acrylic little card stands there on the right. Everybody, please take one of those. That material is there. I don't want to carry anything out of here. Okay? Really, it's there. It's free. take it. You know, you never know when you run across someone who needs our number, so please. And thank you all for having me.
And we have a Easter basket for everybody. And this was like a little, supposed to be like one of those old timey grocery bags, but I can get that. But make sure you, when you pick up your information and put it in this on your way out. I'm going to put the hole puncher over here so that you can punch your implementation guide so that you can actually keep it in your notebook. Okay?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Lois, and I'm in Morgantown, and I'm just a community member, and I like to get involved in the community. There's a student at the School of Medicine, the Community Medicine up north. Her name is Megan Shaw. She is writing a manual on the like the different barriers in health due to culture and social, the disconnect between cultural and social views, meaning that a lot of our healthcare professionals are mostly Caucasian and they don't identify the needs of the culture in the Black community, and sometimes miscommunication occurs. And how do we address that? So she will be having in August a workshop up north in Morgantown. I have some flyers. We have a date and a time. It'll be on a Saturday, August the 26th from 9 to 3 p.m. And however, I know it's an inconvenience maybe to go up there, but after this is for a thesis to get a master's. After she's done, we will work with Ms. Lehman and the coalition here to bring that workshop down south at in Charleston, if the interest is here. So if you can make it to Morgantown, I have several flyers, or if you know anyone that you can